And Wayne, with you, we take a look at the report from ABARES and their strong horticulture projections, but they're sheepish about the climate. I suppose we all are when you consider that you can speculate on a whole range of things, including where the economies are going and where dollars are going, but things like pandemics and the climate circumstance aren't always easy. And the federal government's agriculture reporting agency is ABARES. And they've been busy this week at a conference reporting on where they see the lie of the land. And they're releasing quite a bit of data, and we're trying to model this data and bring some of it to you. But this today is sort of like modelling without really knowing exactly what you can model. And I take the view, and the National Farmers Federation are confident, and others are confident about the years ahead for agriculture. But we have to have the look at things like the impact of inaction on bringing fruit pickers in from overseas, and that has caused a big loss in horticulture. And according to ABARES, the lack of supply in overseas harvest workers, particularly from the Working Holiday Maker program, will result in a forecast drop in fruit production by as much as 17% and vegetable production by at least 2%. This drop in production will ultimately impact consumers, with prices to increase between 7 and 29%. So we model those sorts of things, but 12 months before, when ABARES would have been looking at the model, they would not have thought about a pandemic. They certainly wouldn't have thought about the holiday program being cancelled and the inaction of government when the situation did emerge of how we're going to get people from Vanuatu to come in and pick the fruit. And that, to me, was very slow. And ABARES was less confident even that when they said they were looking forward at the weather, but perhaps consistent with the overarching climate change narrative that pervades much of academia and public service commentary, ABARES was more pessimistic in projecting forward 5 years, saying it was more likely that there would be a drought year than a wetter year over that period. Now, there's no evidence for that. When one looks and projects forward for the last 20 years, we have had droughts in certain parts of Australia, and New South Wales and Queensland a prolonged one. In South Australia, back 10, 12 years ago, we had drought there too. But when you take Australia as a whole and the productivity, we're actually producing more now than we were 20 years ago. Is it just because of science? Or is it because we're actually working with the climate that largely isn't changing? And ultimately, even though ABARES has gone for a pessimistic negative view that we're going to get drought, the reality is that nonetheless the 2021-22 year has got predictions that there would be above average rainfall due to the residual soil moisture. And that we can report here on Flow News 24 that anecdotally there's been increased stock yardings through our broadcast areas. Livestock are coming in better shape, and the only lag in the market appears to be that graziers are keeping stock in the paddock. And this is ultimately to increase the breeding program and increase either the flock or the herd. And Country Viewpoint host is Jason Regan. He spoke with ABARES yesterday afternoon, and that interview will appear on our Flow News 24 podcast channel. And also, if you'd like to download that via Apple or Spotify or Google, you can put the one on your phone to use too. Flow News 24 is where you can find that about ABARES and their speculation about the future of agriculture this next 12 months. I suspect that it's going to be a good season. I'm going to be positive and optimistic rather than pessimistic.